You're muted.
Hi, I'm Evan. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Deb. Um, I promise I won't swear since you're recording this. All right. So first of all, Karen, you are one of the ladies that I recognized that came to the either the Christmas or when Deb spoke. And so thanks. Nice to see you. There's a couple other people. Kristen might be. I think so. Hi, nice to see you too. Listen, my name is Evan. I'm an alcoholic. I was a classical musician. A lot of my story has to do with being a viola player. Viola is a big violin still under the neck. It's the alto to the soprano. So, after 30 years in and out of the program, today I have 4 years, 6 months, and 27 days. And I hang on to every frickin' day. This is the last time. I'm 64 now. I'm taking care of my parents. We'll get into that. But let me tell you my story. Some of it is interesting. Look at if I can give you guys a nugget. This is how I work. If you can get one nugget from me, I'm a success. All right. Grew up in Boston, a family of 7 children, Jewish. My mother was an opera singer, gave up a career to have kids. She also knew before it was common knowledge that music helped with every aspect of education, from math, absolutely, to reading skills, language skills, science skills, working together skills, all those great things. And she was right. 2 of my siblings went to Harvard, one went to MIT, one went to Stanford, and 3 of us went to Juilliard, the music school in New York City. So we grew.
You're muted.
I'm not doing that. I don't know if we are. Anyway, um, so we all started piano when we were 5 years old, and a second instrument when we were 6. A typical weekend for the Wilson family was my mother would take us in to hear the Boston Symphony youth concerts. And we would get to know what instrument we might like to play because they used to let you walk up on stage and that type of thing. Well, there was one day that went by, and I was 5 years old, and I pulled on my mother's shoulder, and I said, "That's what I want to play." It was a viola, which is kind of interesting because I'm kind of a concertmaster personality, and a viola is the inner line, the accompanimental line, and that's not me. I want to lead. It's a little tidbit. So it was pretty obvious when my older sister Lissy, who played violin, she was 11, I was 10, that we were talented. We played in this orchestra in Boston called the Greater Boston Youth Symphony Orchestra, which was made up of all the talented kids in all the New England states. So most of the kids were 18 years old. My sister and I were young, obviously. So it was every Sunday afternoon. It was a 3-hour rehearsal, and there was a 20-minute break in between. So we're rehearsing. We finished the first half of the rehearsal, and the first viola player, the principal viola player, comes up to me and says, "Hey, would you mind going over a couple of spots in the music?" I said, "Sure." We go through the music. The rest of the orchestra starts coming on back on stage, and I'm 10 years old. I assumed it was time for me to take a break. So I went and I had my Hostess Twinkies. I was a Twinkies kid. Played a little bit of pinball, came back on stage, and the conductor stops the orchestra. Now, I have to tell you, every time I tell this story, and I just told you I'm 64, this was 54 years ago. And my upper lip is sweating. And believe me, it's not you guys. I love you. It's because I'm remembering this story. He stops the orchestra and he says to me, "Excuse me, Mr. Wilson. I can even remember the piece, but can you please play Dvorak New World Symphony, second movement, letter B? It happens to be a little bit of a difficult passage." And I look at it and I say, "No." And he says to me in front of the orchestra, Well, then perhaps you should come back to rehearsals on time like the rest of the orchestra. And I swore at 10 years old, I would never not be prepared again. That's the first defining moment I can remember in my life, except when my sister pushed me down the stairs when I was 4 years old, and I have a scar here. But seriously, that's. I mean, I remember that so vividly, and so that you can kind of take that yourself, the trajectory of perfectionism immediately. Never settled for anything less. Never took the time to pat myself on the shoulder for a job well done. Every time I did something good, how can I do it better next time? What can I do better? Instead of basking in doing okay, it always had to be the greatest. Anyway, let's go on. So that was 10 years old. When I was 16 years old, we're going to get to the alcohol, I promise. When I was 16 years old, I won a competition and I soloed with the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Big deal. I'm on stage playing, everything's going great. And all of a sudden, in my body, I start feeling this shaking. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I don't know, but the concert went great, but I told my parents about it afterwards. And my father and I ended up going to see a neurologist. Well, he put us through a whole series of tests, both of us. And it turns out back then they called it a benign essential tremor. Now they called it an essential tremor. And many people have it. You know, you see an older person or drinking up a cup of coffee, that little shake, that's generally an essential tremor. For me, it was career threatening. Now, I'm going to show it to you now, not because I'm proud of it, because I don't know if we have any newcomers in this meeting. And if there are some newcomers in this meeting, I'm going to show you something vulnerable about myself, because that's what we do here. We show you something vulnerable, so it gives you the strength to tell us something vulnerable about yourself. So this is what the tremor looks like right now. It's bad. It's like a palsy. So the doctor put me on, what was it? Inderal, propanolol. It is a non-narcotic. It slows the heart down, so it slows the adrenaline down, but it didn't stop the shake. So I still had to deal with, a little bit of this tremor. Anyway, I get into Juilliard, have fantastic years there. Yes, I ended up being first seat. And before I even graduated, I got into the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Now, I want to slow down for a second, because 16 was when I had my first, talk about I really first drank. We went Christmas caroling the hospital down the street. And Jack, I can't even remember the name of it. Jack, oh my God, that's a good thing. I can't even remember the name of the alcohol. Doesn't matter then. I got drunk and I came home and I had a crying jag. I started saying to my mother, "Oh, I'm such a, you're so good to me." She said, "Evan, just go to sleep." That was the end of it. It wasn't some feeling that I loved and wanted to come back to. I just got drunk. It's kind of the same with marijuana. And yeah, just an interesting thing, because we're Jewish. We did the Passover thing. Um, didn't really the drinking the wine didn't really interest me. Anyway, let's continue forward. I'm in Juilliard and discovered that the powdered goods. Did a little bit of that. And then I got into, as I said, the Los Angeles Philharmonic when I was started when I was 22. And all of a sudden you come into I came into a good chunk of money. I'm single, living that life down in Marina Del Rey. And it was fun for a while. There's no question it was fun for a while. But what happened was that one afternoon, I was 33 years old. So this was about 1994 or 5. And we had a rehearsal in the afternoon. And there was nothing for the violas to play. So my brother Jerry, who was in the orchestra for a long time, he and I went out to lunch, and we had Mexican. And I came back, and they had changed the schedule, and they had put a piece on the rehearsal that has a massive viola solo. I am I'm out of my mind. I hadn't taken the medication, and I am in full on panic mode. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I was perceived as one of the great violists of the world, and I wanted to run off that stage for a rehearsal. I start chewing those blue pills, hoping something is going to save me. We get to the solo. I nail it. And I'm like, what's going on here? And then I remembered I had a couple of beers at lunch with Jerry. And that's when the light went off. Self-medication. And this is where it really began. I tried to be scientific, you know. Thought peppermint schnapps might wear nut smells and vodka smells. I don't like gin. To make a long story short, I ended up with a shot of Jägermeister and a menthol eucalyptus cough drop. I know. Chris, can you believe it? Jaeger, it stinks, but menthol eucalyptus canceled it out. And that worked for a long time. A lot of solos played very comfortably with Jägermeister in my empty stomach. But you know what? Then I needed a second shot, and then a third shot. And the next thing I know, I'm drinking a cup of Jägermeister before I go on stage to play first seat with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Never mind that I'm doing a ton of studio work with big name artists, or that I'm doing television and movies, and I'm sitting first seat, and I got to put on some type of buzz for every one of these things in case there's a solo. So it was exhausting sometimes getting drunk 3 times a day. Uh, so I'm 33. That's going on. The alcohol works for a while. And then about 5 years in, I'm about to play first seat with the Boston Symphony Orchestra for 2 weeks. Very big deal to me because I grew up here and that was my childhood dream. And I get here, we play, and I'm doing great, but the alcohol is involved. And I remember at one concert, in between pieces, and thank God they had to transition from a full orchestra to a reduced orchestra with a piano soloist. I had to run off stage and throw up in between the first two pieces. If that isn't insanity, I mean, this is the thing that I love with all my heart, and I'm having to do that kind of thing. Man. And you know, meanwhile, at home, I have a beautiful daughter, and my ex-wife, who we're very good friends, but her father had been an alcoholic, and she didn't talk to him for the last 10 years of his life. So there was just total transference to me, which was not a very pleasant situation. Even with all my success with my viola, when you hear somebody call you a piece of shit or a loser or pathetic every day for 3 years, you start to believe it. I did. I had to get out of there. It took me about 8 years, banging my head against the wall, thinking something would change. I'm what needed to change. So basically, every 5 years through my career, I would put myself into a rehab. And that's why I brought my daughter up, actually. The first one was Betty Ford Center. And I'm kind of a nice guy, but I had this arrogant streak. You know, you check into Betty Ford Center, and they give you a verbal test and a math test. And I mean, I aced the math test. And we get to the verbal. They tell me you get a 19 out of 20. And I'm arguing with them that your definition is incorrect. Just so I had the 20 out of 20. That's my kind of arrogance. You come from a family of 7 kids. It's who's right? Who's right? You're wrong. A lot of you're wrong in my life. So Betty Ford Center was very good. I learned a lot of things, including the very first thing I learned was that the alcoholic relapses when he or she forgets the memory of their pain. And that helped keep me sober for a while when I first got out. They also had a family program, which was one of the greatest things that I did. Because my daughter, who was 8 at the time and fairly precocious as kids in these type of situations are, I'll never forget when she was 4 years old and my wife at the time and I were having an argument. She took her hand and my hand and said, "Mom and Dad, you need to make up and talk. Blessed be the peace giver or the peacemaker." But she was too young to put that on a 4-year-old isn't right. I've apologized to her since. But all right, where are we? We're at the Betty Ford Center. Okay. And then I went back to work. And I was like a Talmudic scholar with the big book. I was one of those guys that could quote it because I had to be the best. And I remember at the Betty Ford Center rehab that when I read my fourth step to the guys, they were all saying, "Oh my God, I got to do mine again. That was so honest." Yeah, but it was like me being honest because I wanted to show you how honest I could be. I'm being honest with you right now. That's the truth. It wasn't just to be honest. It was kind of to put it in your face, you know? Sorry about that. Um, I went to Cirque Lodge a couple of years later. I found it's very easy to feel God when you're at the top of a mountain. The difficulty is taking him with you back to the bottom. That's what I found. Anyway, let's move forward so we can get into well, we have plenty of time, but we can get into recovery. So I do a lot of studio and motion pictures and I had a couple of just phenomenal moments in my life. And I'm going to share one or two of them with you. And if you think it's me bragging, it's not. I can't play anymore. I haven't played for 10 years. These are memories that I'm talking about. But I mean, and if you feel like I'm name throwing, I apologize. It was my life. But I don't know if you recall when that movie Ray came out with Jamie Foxx and Alicia Keys. And we're playing on that same one with Beyonce and with Paul McCartney. And it was just one of those moments like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. I always knew I would play with great classical musicians. But to throw me into that world, it was exciting. I got to meet my favorite group in the entire world, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Those are some incredible moments. I got to travel the world with the orchestra. I got to perform everywhere. I got to sightsee, all because of the viola and the orchestra. Life was just incredible until I screwed it up with the alcohol. I lost my job 2005. That was pretty devastating because I was always the first one there practicing, the last one there talking to people at the concerts. But I went on and I just continued just doing studio work. And then in 9 years ago, I was in a studio called Mission Impossible was the movie, and we were in Fox Studios in Century in Culver City, Los Angeles. And I always carried this little bottle that had 2 shots of Jaeger in it, unmarked bottle, in my viola case. So we play the first tune, or cue as they call it. And I'm not feeling well. I'm not even first seat, by the way. So why would I have to drink if I'm not sitting first seat? Well, I drank the 2 shots. We play the second tune, and I'm just not feeling it, and my head dropped. I can't do this anymore. I remember. So I put my viola away quietly, and I walked up to the contractor, and he knows my story. And I said, "I can't do it, Reg." And he had to take care of getting somebody to fill my seat. And I walked out of Fox Studios crying all the way to my car. And that is the last time I picked up my viola. Now, I don't know if I can get you to really understand that this was a death for me. This was my child. I mean, it was the greatest love of my life. Yes, I love my daughter more than anything. This was the greatest love of my life. It was my voice. It was my soul. It was my self-esteem. You know, when most people are teenagers and in high school and in college, might go through a relationship with a breakup or something that's heartbreaking. I could play the viola and express that. I had that. Yeah, I'm starting to use the word blessing more. So what a blessing that was. But that's when the real drinking started. I went into a severe depression, and for 4.5 years, that's all I did was drink. You know, the first 6 months, um, I've heard about these people that go into a depression and they can't get out of bed. And I was like, "Is that real?" It's real, except for going to the bathroom. For 6 months, I just was in bed. And then one morning, I literally picked my leg up because I'm a walker. I used to be a jogger. And I went and I walked. And I worked. Well, I didn't just walk, I went up to the liquor store. And then I started walking every day. And I worked up to walking 9 hours a day for the entire time, either starting the morning off with a half pint of tequila at about 9 a.m. Just want to tell you, a half pint is 4 shots. I weigh 230 pounds. I could barely feel it in my fingernails, but it continued through the day. Every half hour, get another little nip, tequila. And that's what I did for 4.5 years. I got to know all the great little taco stands on the street. Um, I saw the sadness in my daughter's eyes. I saw the frustration in one of my sisters. And I remember picking up the phone and calling my mother, and she said, "We don't talk to drunks here." Click. And that was a stab in the heart because I had been the golden boy. So I said, "You know what? I am, I'm going to give this one last try." And so I put myself into the Miracles Detox at the Brotman Hospital in, again, Culver City. And quite frankly, it was miserable because there was a heat wave and the staff was miserable. The doctor was not showing. It was really the only thing that was great about it. Before I even say it, I want to say to anyone in this group of 109 people who have done panels at hospitals or institutions, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. Because for some reason, that's what made the difference for me. These three people would come in well dressed, well spoken, and kind. Each one of them would talk for 20 minutes, and I thought, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. So I went to one of the nurses saying that, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, you'll be back." She didn't mean that way. Anyway, 6 days. And I did this every day with about 5 people because it's something I learned at the Betty Ford Center. They process, when there's a speaker in, they process after the speaker. And they sit around in a square, and from the youngest to the most long-term person, that's how they share. And so I did that with these 5 people, and it was great. It was like having a little posse. Sadly, I'm the only one that is still sober. Well, or happily, but I mean, I'm sorry they aren't. I like them. Um, and thus began the very beginning, and I decided what I was going to do. For the first year, you can't say that you can't get to a meeting. There are 10,000 meetings online. It's a bunch of BS. So I committed to 3 meetings a day, morning, afternoon, evening. And yeah, I'm a little crazy. I took a commitment at every meeting. 21, a little much, yes, but it kept me accountable. And that's what I needed. I want to mention one other thing. Sammy, come here. Come here. This is my little guy, Sammy. And my ex-wife was kind enough to let me take Sammy and to take care of him because I wanted to be accountable to something living. And I love that little guy. He has sat with me for every meeting. He even knows the Serenity prayer. I'm not kidding. When you say the Serenity prayer, he'll start barking afterwards. He knows it's the end of the meeting. Anyway, so accountability. I would go to 3 meetings, the commitments. And then people started seeing that this guy, Evan, is responsible. The next thing I know, I am secretary of 5 meetings, which is too much. But I will tell you what I learned. I learned how to speaker surf all over the world. It was unbelievable. From Berlin to Paris to London to India. Spoke in India once. That was just fascinating to get all the different perspectives. And speaking of perspectives, we know this is a disease of perspective. But I have to tell you this little story about a buddy of mine who, he brags to me about how he has sex 4 or 5 times a week and he works out twice a day and he lifts weights twice a day. But there isn't a day that goes by that he doesn't complain about being in prison. That is perspective. Anyway, well, I got down to secretary of 2 meetings, which was very easy to handle. My father's health had begun to decline, so I was going home every 2 months. I had made amends to my parents, and I get a call. I didn't get a call. I'm at a meeting one night with the group in Los Angeles called Barebones, and this is about 2.5 years into my sobriety. And it's my daughter, and she knows not to call at 10 o'clock at night because I'm in that meeting. And she's crying. I said, "Honey, what's going on?" And she said, "Dad, the house is on fire." I said, "What?" She said, "The house is on fire." And this is exactly what I did. So that I could come back to the phone and my voice would be completely calm. And I said, "You doing okay, Henry? Did you got out okay? Everybody got out? Yeah. The fire truck is there." So, "You know what, honey? I don't think I'm going to come home tonight. I'm in a meeting and I think it's probably not a better place I could be." So I got off the phone with her. She's fine. I come back to the meeting and they're all, "What's going on? What's going on?" I said, "Oh, my house is on fire." And they're like, I said, "Let's go on." And they're like, how are you so relaxed, calm? If there was ever a time I was powerless, if it was that moment, what am I going to do? Drive over to the house and be a hero? There's nothing I could have done. So I stayed with the family that I knew that would make me feel safe until I saw the house the next day. And I did see the house and I wept. I wept for, I didn't just cry, I wept. My entire collection of violas was like a museum collection. I didn't weep because of the money. I didn't weep because I can't play it anymore. I wept because nobody else gets to play these anymore. Every one of the bows had a different color, a different voice. The same with the violas, and it's gone. It's just gone. And those 3 weeks were the 3 of the most difficult weeks in my life. And I picked up the phone at least 25 times a day. I was crying all the time. I was bereft. Really. Was and somehow I got through it. I don't know. I don't know how. I honestly don't. I look back now, I can talk about it. And, early on in sobriety, about a year in, there was a guy in the program. We were best friends, and I was helping him out a little bit. I did okay for myself financially. I don't try to show off. I was trying to help him. And then I heard from a couple of senior members, and one of them said to me, he swore at me, Who the F do you think you are? Are you that arrogant that you could think you could save someone's life? I said, I was just trying to help the guy out. Yeah. Anyway, he had a point. And then someone else said to me, your heart, your intention is good, but we don't rob the alcoholic of their journey. And wow, that was heavy and made a lot of sense. And so I wrote a loving note to him saying that I could not co-sign his apartment. And he ghosted me. If you don't know what ghosting means, it means he pretends I don't exist anymore. And I'm a softie. My heart was broken. I thought I had a friend in the program. Oh, man. That was the first real challenge I had. That was a year in. Anyway, so the house, you know, the house is what it is. What happened shortly thereafter is February 21st, 2 years ago. I came home as a joke to my father's 95 now, so he would have been 93, to get him a pedicure. Because old people, man, old men, their feet can look rather gnarly, like a sorcerer's. So I go to get him a pedicure, and we end up in the hospital. And I had a decision to make. And so I stayed. I never went back to Los Angeles. And I left my apartment there. I still had 2.5 months on it. And I let a couple of people in the program who were struggling, I let them stay there for the 2.5 months. Again, I got shit from some people about spending that type of money on others. I was concentrating on taking care of my father. I don't really consider it a big deal to me. But, this caregiving it's just very difficult. Um, it is a rather thankless job. It is 5 things being asked of me at once. I try to practice the program every day with this caregiving because I love my parents so much. My father is the sweetest thing, and my mother is his rock. And she can be the biggest pain in the yes. It's unbelievable. We have gotten into arguments where she has said some really mean things, and I ended up saying F you to my mother, which I hated myself. I hated myself for talking that way. I don't anymore. I try to practice patience, tolerance, kindness, and love, but I did not know what I was getting myself into. I have 7 brothers and sisters. 2 of them helped a little bit at the beginning, but for almost a year now, it's been me alone. And I'm not, look, I've worked through it, but if I'm going to bring it up to you, I'm very angry about it. I have to read the resentment prayer every day. It's been months, not one of them helping. And yeah, people say you'll never regret that you did this. Look, I already spent a ton of time with my parents, taking them on vacations. But I'm happy to do this. I'm happy that I'm sober so I can do this. I'm happy that I'm sober so I can work on a bunch of my character defects, which is raising my voice too quickly with my parents, which is just not, it has a lot to do with patience. The issue with giving our parents, giving my parents their dignity, like with mom was trying to do her coat today, and I could have done it in 2 seconds. It took her about 2 minutes. I can't say anything about death. I just can't do that to her. I noticed this morning that my mother is beginning to forget more. And I can't bring it up. It's making life harder to get certain things out. I have to use this program in everything I do. Otherwise, I go nuts. I mean, there have been 2 moments where I felt like I was out of my mind. One was because my father fell on his head, and I was there. But the other time was once when my mother was just so incredibly mean. I was thinking, what am I even doing here if this is how they talk to me? And then I had to put myself inside their shoes. She's dealing with watching her prince of 74 years they've been married. Her prince fade. She herself was a tireless woman working for 7 children. She is starting to get tired. I have to remember these things. I have to put these things before anything. Well, that's not, I mean, AA. Um, but to remember so that I treat them with the respect and love that I want to treat them with. As far as my siblings, that when my parents go, we'll see. I'm open to anything, but right now it's making my life just a lot easier not having to deal with any of them. I mean, if you're not helping and you're telling me what to do, that really doesn't work. And I tried to be kind, but that didn't help much either. So that's where we are right now, and I am the co-secretary of a meeting every night at 7 p.m. Um, I still speak to a number of people on the phone. I still sponsor 2 people. Uh, I speak a fair amount, not as much as I can, because all of my time. I mean, I have somebody for 4 hours a day, but the rest of the time I'm on duty, so I can get called away at any time. I was going to say that before this started. Luckily, I didn't get called away. Sometimes Mom has trouble turning off the TV right now. Um, my again, I can only be honest. I came out here and I felt like a youthful 62-year-old man. I now feel like an older 64-year-old man. My back is shot after picking dad up 34 times. And I never thought it was going to affect me into my afterlife. But sacrifices have to be made. And I mean, I'm just willing. I'm willing. I love them. I would do anything for them. I'd take a bullet. My father knows that. Well, my superpower has nothing to do with bullets. My superpower is the fact that I can make them laugh about anything. I can tell him a joke he's heard 10 times. He still loves it. And that's so important. Just seeing that smile and the belly move a little bit. He has that Buddha belly. Anyway, it's, I think I might be a little bit short, but I'm going to finish with a story, if that's right. All right with you, Deb. It's been a very long day, and I'm doing my best here, but I don't want to. I don't want to just ramble. So let me finish with this story. Kurt Vonnegut, the author, and Joseph Heller, the author, who wrote Catch 22, were at a billionaire hedge fund financier's Christmas party, and Vonnegut is known as being a wise guy. And so Vonnegut says to Heller, "Hey, how's it make you feel knowing that this guy made more in a day than you made your entire life?" And Heller said, "Oh yeah, is that so? But I have something he'll never have though." And Vonnegut is, "Yeah, what's that?" And Heller said, "Enough." And when I come into a meeting like this, where I know just a few people and I feel completely comfortable, and when I tell something a little bit humorous and you smile, or when I said it's the last time I played viola, I saw the pain in some of your faces. Thank you for the empathy. I have enough. My name is Evan. I'm an alcoholic, and thank you so much for letting me talk to you for tonight. Thanks.